This can draw some attention at your local shooting range. Speaking from experience, some dudes will just come up very impressed and want to know what it is. And I gotta admit, it does have some very cool looks to it. Maybe leaping out of the Aliens 2 movie. It's impressive looking. Video game kit. So if scoring some style points, maybe some cool points with your buddies, onlookers at the range, then perhaps this is just the ticket for your M1A. Welcome to the Nutnfancy Tabletop review, very short I might add, on the Troy Industries Modular Chassis System. I can't hide the fact that I am thoroughly unstoked about it. Nope, I don't lie. If I like it, you're going to know it. If I don't, you'll know it. I know, I wish I was, but TMPers who have been following my philosophies for years, they know why already. It's no secret. I gotta say though, when I first saw it at SHOT Show, I was thoroughly stoked. I was like, man, that looks awesome. Lots of Picatinny rail for the M1A. Really locking it in, maybe really increasing accuracy. I'm gonna talk about that. And I guess first, I should cover the good on the Troy MCS. And there are several good points about it. One I've already mentioned. It is just, I don't know, fabulous looking. It transforms the looks of your M1A. Very sick. In today's video game world, that is a very important thing with a lot of weapon owners. I ain't gonna lie. It is. Looks. Image. It's about that, and there's no getting away from it. If, again, I'm not joking. If that's important to you, this is very, very cool. Also, the fit and finish on the Troy MCS, top notch. Just like we see from everything that comes out of the Troy shops. American made. Fabulous fit and finish. There's really no flaws that I can see at all. This is the FDE colorized one. Very sick. So perfect fit and finish. And also the accuracy. Spent some time, spent some money, seeing if the Troy MCS makes a difference in accuracy. And I think a lot of guys are really wondering about this. Here's my results. First up, this is an awesome group. Look at that. That's Hunting Shack 168 grain AMAX 3/4 inch group. That's better than I got out of the plastic stock of this M1A loaded. This is a Springfield Armory M1A. Right now you'll see at the top my review on it. You can reference that. Outstanding group. Actually better than I got, if I can remember right, from the plastic stock. This was side in. Here's PMC. More PMC. That's actually a pretty impressive group, and I think honestly the chassis did totally tighten it up for PMC. Okay, so I actually have 3 groups of PMC. Federal XM80. That has not been too impressive out of anything that I've been shooting out of it. The XM762 was much better. Nice group here than a flyer. Was that me? I felt good about the trigger pull. That's all I can tell you. That's that same HSM group. Here's a 168 grain gold medal match, another flyer. Yes, I am aware that there are mods that you can do to make the M1A more accurate, spending a lot of money. To me, I just don't know if it's worth it. Maybe I would just go with an FNAR, which shoots PMC like that out of the box. I was just happened to shoot one that day. There's a MCS group with, again, Hunting Shack 168 grain AMAX. That's a pretty good group for me out of an M1A. I would say that's about an inch, 1.6 inch group. Another 1.6, maybe a little bit larger out of that. And then finally 168 grain Ultramax. That's a great round. It shoots very accurately. If a gun is very squared away, that will clover leaf. Granted, this is an M1A. Compared to the plastic stock that the Springfield Armory came on, I believe you're going to experience some accuracy improvement. I don't think it is very substantial. At the most, I would ballpark it at a half MOA improvement, probably more like a quarter MOA improvement. Now, I was shooting a unitized gas cylinder, or gas assembly I should say, on the M1A by Springfield as a loaded variety, and so maybe that helped, maybe it didn't. Some accuracy improvement, I gotta say it, and so that's an upside to the MCS. Here comes that awkward transition. Now it's a downslope of things I don't like about the MCS, and there's several of them. One is obvious to TMPers who know my SAWC philosophy, and that is the weight. Oh my gosh, is this thing a boat anchor? It's insane. I don't know what it is in the tactical community, but some dudes, maybe it's that whole image thing, they just get disconnected from SAWC realities. Now, we hauled this thing around in the mountains to test it. A lot of the shooting we did was in the mountains. We tested it with Troy, Matt Skutnick from Troy, in my Operation Red Sky series of videos. Incidentally, Matt's no longer with Troy. He moved on to other places. Matt's still an awesome dude, friend of TMP. But he was shooting an MCS there and hauling it around, and every 10 minutes I was like, so how's that treating you? And he was like, not cool. It's a pain in the butt to haul around. It's kind of like a Sage International equipped EBR. You know, dudes who haul that around aren't stoked about it, I hear. You know, Introvert and Smell USMC says guys running the Sages, they just dread it. They're like fighting to see who has to carry it. It's heavy, man. If you're built like Superman and you have incredible endurance, then yeah, maybe. Let's talk specifically about what this is going to add to your M1A system. Remember, I always talk systems. The gun alone, I'm talking the Springfield Armory loaded version without any mount or scope, with just a standard iron sights with a sling, weighed 9 pounds 7 ounces. Okay, now this sucker, when it's fully loaded, as you're looking at it, actually not as you're looking at it, without a scope, was 12 pounds 1 ounce. So that is an aggregate weight gain of 3 pounds 6 ounces. That is a huge amount. Now on the Troy Industries website, it says only 1.5 pounds added to your M1A. I just don't see it. Maybe they're going off a walnut stock, national match. It just depends on which stock you're using. So maybe that's what they're going off of. 3.5 pounds is what you're going to gain with a Troy MCS. The plastic stock by itself weighs 2 pounds 9 ounces, and that's with a sling. The Troy MCS with BUIS rear stock, 5 pounds 8 ounces. And actually that's with this MOE Magpul stock. The one that came on it, their battle axe, is an incredible 19.4 ounces. It's very solid, very strong, but man, come on, dudes. 20 ounces for a butt stock? Seriously. This one is 8.2 ounces. We put that on just to save some weight. That's a Hogue pistol grip. I can't remember if we threw that on, if it came with it. So that's not adding any weight. So yeah, I mean, that basically ruins the whole system, the M1A system. It's already heavy. I mean, outfitted, it's going to be around 10 pounds, 10 plus with a scope and M1A. I slammed it for weight in my tabletop review, rightly so. I mean, it's basically a 1950s era, iron and steel, steel and wood 308 battle rifle, 7.62 51 battle rifle. It's heavy. Very, very capable, but heavy. But this makes it worse. Weight-wise. It just does. I mean, 13.5 pounds? No, I'm not interested. Also, the install was a total pain in the butt. One of the things I don't like about it is I have to use that rear sight to mount the MCS. So you completely remove your rear sight, say goodbye to your zero, all the ammunition it took you to get that zero, it's gone. And you have to completely disassemble, remove the rear sight. You have to take off the flash hider, take off your front sight, take off the gas assembly, basically dismantle the whole gun to put the mounting block on per the instructions, which actually are decent, that Troy includes. And then you'll put screw the two halves together. Underneath the trigger guard will be 2 adjustment screws that you probably need to adjust. I had to back mine out so that trigger assembly fits in tight to the aluminum chassis. Once I did that, it is locked in there. I mean, I was really hopeful this thing would cloverleaf. And I got to tell you, if I was cloverleafing with this thing, I'd be more stoked. Weight be darned. Which brings us perhaps to a philosophy of use other than, I don't know, trying to look cool. That is, as Troy kind of builds it, a DMR rifle, a designated marksman rifle. I would say actually a police department sharpshooter's rifle, where the weight is actually a good thing. because these guys are not going to be carrying their guns for miles after miles. I'm talking LE guys, SWAT guys. It's going to come out of the truck. It's going to deploy rooftop. And the weight there will be very helpful. I got to represent that. You put it on a bipod, you know, that 13.5-pound gun's going to really settle down, and it's going to let you shoot more accurately. Lightweight guns are harder to shoot. Heavy guns, once they're settled in, they're easier to shoot. So that's a realistic philosophy of use, and actually it makes a lot of sense. If you don't plan on traipsing around a lot with your M1A, or for that matter, LE guys, your M14, probably a great modification, to be honest. Pain in the butt to install, though. I don't like it. Do I really need all this rail, too? I mean, on the AR-15 rails, my standard of measure is a Troy rail. It is probably the best AR-15 M4, M16 rail in the business. There's some other ones coming out like Midwest Industries that are copying Troy. But they're slim, they're trim, they're super light, shaving like 30 to 50% off your forend, depending on what rail you're running now. This is not that. It has too much metal in it. Pretty much too much rail. It just depends though. I mean, if you're going to go NV, this is probably a great option because you got all this top pick rail. You can run, you know, piggyback NV on it. Bipod here, lights. I mean, how much crap are you going to be hanging on there? Then you're looking at, I don't know, a 15-pound gun. I would really like them to make this a non-weight gainer. That's your challenge, Troy, is do this and make it so I don't gain any weight at all. I think, honestly, the whole thing has to be redesigned, though, because you have this huge chunk of metal running topside, which kind of leads us to, told you, another negative point for me, and that is that scope is coming even higher above the bore axis, which I generally detest. I like it lower for more ergonomics with my fat cheek, and also for flatter trajectory and zeroing. I don't want intersecting fire from a very high mounted scope. And then when it's higher, any cant you have is magnified. So if you're not holding those, you know, those crosshairs perfectly straight, it's magnified the higher you go with your scope. Is that a minor problem? Probably, but it still bugs me. You know, ergonomically from this portion back, it's actually pretty awesome. Standard AR pistol grip, standard AR buttstock. That is a mil-spec buffer tube. Not really a buffer tube, but a tube in the back. Running the MOE stock again. So that's all good. Up front, it's, I don't know, worse. This is a Magpul AFG, which is, Tactical Doodle threw that on there. He's playing with it, whatever. But holding it's not ergonomic, and it's a fat forend. Ergonomics, I would say overall, are dim. Sorry, dim on the Troy Industries MCS. And then another downside is that it's downright expensive. Around $990 snapshot in time. Yeah, so that's a chunk of change for your M1A. You're basically buying another M1A. And the question you have to ask yourself, what capabilities am I going to gain by the installation of a Troy MCS? By the way, there's your side receiver screw, which locks it in. Forgot to mention that. Some more pick rail there too. Hallelujah. I don't see much except perhaps in the SWAT role, sharpshooter role, DMR, what do you want to call it? It's going to be heavier, more settled down weapon system. It is going to be a little bit more accurate. Depending on your M1A, maybe a lot more accurate, and your load. It does really lock the gun down. It does. But if you're a standard user, maybe you're going to use it as a raw rifle, I would say probably not. By the way, I would level the criticisms I'm giving here probably to any current generation M1A M14 chassis system. Kind of like the Juggernaut Tactical Rogue chassis. It kind of clocks out at around $1,000. It's a bullpup design. Has a remote trigger on it. They say it's smooth. I haven't shot it. I'm not really sure on the weight, but it looks heavy. It looks like it's going to add weight. And all you dudes making chassis systems for the M1A, you need to just spell that out. This is how much it's going to add to your gun. With a plastic stocked current generation Springfield Armory, it will add this much. Make that on your spreadsheet or your spec sheet. Wood stock, it'll add this much. Then guys can kind of have a planning factor. You know, is it awesome? Not awesome? I generally hate bullpup designs. I don't like the triggers. I don't like being scrunched up when I shoot. I like a standard battle rifle configuration. That's just me though. There's other options too. The J. Allen Precision Stock, JAE. I think it clocks around $800 with no mods. Every mod you put on there is going to up the cost. So I don't know, outfitted $1,100. It looks heavy too. It's an aluminum chassis. On the upside, the JAE does not have a top rail. So you're able to keep your irons, and you just have a bottom aluminum chassis that maybe tightens things up, but it's also expensive. And then of course you have the Sage International stock. Also heavy. I mentioned that in the review that I'm not a fan of that either. I mean, you make a weapon system heavier. I'm not really into looks, you know, the whole image of weapons. I'm into performance and systems. Does it do something for me that previously the weapon system did not? By the way, that's a Vortex 6-24x50 Viper PST mil radian scope that did the accuracy testing on it. And that is, I think, the Weaver SPR mount. That's a good mount, high value mount. So there you go. There you go. Unstoked, absolutely. Yeah, look at my likability rating. It says it all. Expensive, heavy, doesn't really give you much except what we've talked about. That's the Nutnfancy review. See ya.